So every time I get up here, I try to do something a little different, and I try to challenge myself. And I'm always, it's funny, I can perform in front of a theater audience, no problem. But getting up here is so much deeper, it's so much more personable, that it scares the heck out of me. So if I screw this up a bit, please just forgive me. This is also my first PowerPoint presentation ever. I've never even made one before, so I was up at 3 o'clock this morning making this. So my talk today is about assume best intent. Can everybody see this okay?
No, the bottle's in the way.
The bottle's in the way?
Yeah.
Sorry. Put that down there. So I went into a lot of different belief systems and a lot of different ideologies to prep this. So I wanted to start this off with a koan, which is a newer concept to me. It's a question that's not meant to be answered. It's something to get you thinking deeply. So this one is called the Gateless Gate. The great path has no gates. Thousands of roads enter it. When one passes through this gateless gate, he walks freely between heaven and earth. And then I added my own little line at the bottom there. It says, free your mind for a bit and take a trip with me. Because I'm sure that there's going to be some things that I'm going to say today that you're not going to agree with. And there were particular parts of this that even as I was preparing it, I said, I know particular people are going to say, I don't agree with this part of it. And that's okay, because the thing I love about this church is that it's all about finding those differences and helping those differences join us together, whereas some belief structures use those differences to tear apart. So, with that said, assume best intent. How I learned to be positive. So, Jenna Auschwitz, I don't know that I'm saying her name correctly. She's the chick from Glee. She says in her book, I have always been a naturally happy person. Maybe, to quote the great Gaga, I was born this way. I was not. I was not born a happy person. When I was in my teenage years, struggled very greatly with depression, manic depression, and even suicidal depression. And I struggled with that up until my 20s. And so yeah, me happy? No way. If you had known me even 5 years ago, you probably wouldn't recognize me as the person you see standing before you today. And what made it even worse was in 2009, 2010, Julie and I owned a cafe together. And when we had that cafe, it was such a great experience. It was one of the best experiences of my life. I loved it. It was my heart and my soul. And when it closed, it felt like a part of me got crushed. I don't know who here has owned their own business, but it takes so much energy. It takes so much investment, not just monetary investment, but energy. And you really have to stay a positive person to own a business, especially a small little cafe out in Lebanon, Tennessee. And when it closed, it was like I got cynical. I got mad. They say, and I don't know because I haven't lost a child, but they say that losing a business is the equivalent of losing a child. I don't know that for sure. I just know that both Julie and I got completely depressed for a long time. For almost 7 months, we barely left the house because we didn't want to be around anybody. It wasn't that anybody had done anything. It wasn't that anyone had failed us. It was just that we just couldn't find anything positive. We couldn't find anything happy. And then it was shortly after that actually we joined the UU church in Nashville. And when we joined the UU Church in Nashville, everything sort of changed. This is a quote from one of the co-creators of Glee. It says, "In my experience, the only real path to joy and happiness is truth. When we find the truth in a situation, find our true feelings about it, we can transform our relationship to it and find growth and joy even in failure and especially in success." And that's kind of where we got to with the church, and I'm going to explain how in just a second. So this is kind of the journey that happened to us after we lost the business. First we lost the business, and then a couple of months later we lost our house. And then after that I went into the leadership retreat in 2013, and I'm going to explain how that works into everything. But you can see it kind of got bad for a little while. We lived with friends for a little while. We did some couch surfing. We got kicked out. We lived in our car for a little while, did some more couch surfing, and that's how we ended up here in Tullahoma. So it was kind of a not great journey, but you got to go through all that. The thing that changed was when I went to the church retreat, one of the sessions that we had in that leadership retreat was assume best intent. And it was a new phrase for me because I'd never heard it before. I didn't know what it meant. So I kind of was like, I don't understand how that is supposed to be important to me. But what I started to learn that in everything in life, there is a best intent. Whether it's your interaction with other people or it's life circumstances, there's always something good that can be gained from every experience. From being kicked out of your house, from living in your car. Julie and I constantly joke when we live in a trailer now, and it's not terribly weather friendly. So like right now it's like it gets a little cold, and it gets really cold in our trailer. And we always joke with each other, well, at least we're not living in our car. So it's like we go through these experiences so that we can have perspective and so that we can assume best intent when it comes to the universe and when it comes to how we interact with other people. My number one goal in life is to be happy, period. It doesn't mean that I have to be happy making money. It doesn't mean that I have to be happy career-wise. It doesn't mean that I have to be happy. I'm ecstatically happy. And this is how I stay almost all the time. Because I do simple little things. I laugh at stupid jokes. I find immense happiness in encouraging other people. Now the problem was that I had no filter at all. I was one of those people, I don't know, I guess there's a part of your brain that it allows you to not get nervous or get embarrassed when you say something really hurtful to somebody else. It's not Asperger's, I don't think it's actually Asperger's, but I was one of those people, my friends would come to me and it was quite comical to them. If we had a bad server, they would come to me and say something and I would tell the server off. I was not a nice person at all. Like I was happy and jokey and laughy, but I had no idea of how my words would affect other people. So, I just would do whatever I wanted without any kind of thought or care about how it affected anybody else. I hope that's changed. So I put a little joke in here. You guys have probably all heard it. Assume. Why is it bad?
It's an ass of you and made you.
Thank you very much. You got it. So everybody has always said that assuming is a bad thing. Okay? So when I first heard assume best intent, I was like, I can't do that because I'm going to do that and it's going to make me look foolish. So being an etymology person, I love the definitions of words. So I used my friendly dictionary and I looked up the 3 words. So assume, to take upon oneself, to adopt, to take for granted, to suppose. Assumption, something accepted as truth without proof. Assuming, presumptuous, arrogant. And then some of the synonyms for those words are theory, expect, predict, and suppose. And we're going to come back to why that definition is there in just a minute. Best, surpassing all others in quality, most satisfactory or desirable, to the greatest degree of extent, the optimum condition or quality, the best effort that one can give, for the best, for the ultimate good. And then synonyms, wondrous, excellent, outdo. Intent, an aim or purpose, firmly fixed, concentrated, done deliberately. Synonyms, pointed, declaration, motive, aspiration, or plan. So a couple of different points of view when it comes to intent and intention. A garden requires patient labor and attention. Plants do not grow merely to satisfy ambitions or to fulfill good intentions. They thrive because someone expended effort on them. So that's one view of intentions. Okay? Intentions have very little to nothing to do with what happens. A little bit of a different slant on it. I went biblical. I know that's unusual for me. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. And what I thought was interesting is when I put this one in, it segued perfectly into the next. Before the throne of the Almighty, man will be judged not by his acts, but by his intentions. For God alone reads our hearts. And that's Gandhi. Thought that was interesting because it just kind of goes, okay, then I need to be really careful what my intentions are. I'm going to ask Julie to read a different excerpt from this book. It's called The 50% Theory of Life.
I believe in the 50% theory. Half the time things are better than normal, the other half they are worse. I believe life is a pendulum swing. It takes time and experience to understand what normal is, and that gives me the perspective to deal with the surprises of the future. Let's benchmark the parameters. Yes, I will die. I've dealt with the deaths of both parents, a best friend, a beloved boss, and cherished pets. Some of these deaths have been violent, before my eyes, or slow and agonizing. Bad stuff, and it belongs at the bottom of the scale. Then there are those high points, romance and marriage, to the right person, having a child and doing those dad things, life coaching my son's baseball team, paddling around the creek in the boat while he's swimming with the dogs, discovering his compassion so deep it manifests even in his kindness to snails, his imagination so vivid he builds a spaceship from a scattered pile of Legos. But there is a vast meadow of life in the middle, where the bad and the good flip-flop acrobatically. This is what convinces me to believe in the 50% theory. One spring I planted corn too early in a bottomland so flood-prone that neighbors laughed. I felt chagrined at the wasted effort. Summer turned brutal, the worst heat wave and drought in my lifetime. The air conditioner died, and the well went dry. The marriage ended, the job lost, the money gone. I was living lyrics of a country tune, music I loathed. Only a surging Kansas City Royals team, bound for their first World Series, buoyed my spirits. Looking back on that horrible summer, I soon understood that all succeeding good things merely offset the bad. Worse than normal wouldn't last long. I am owed and savor the halcyon times. I am owed and savor the halcyon times. They reinvigorate me for the next nasty surprise and offer assurance that I can thrive. The 50% theory even helps me see hope beyond my Royals' recent slump, a field of struggling rookies sown so that some years soon we can reap an October harvest. But yeah, the corn crop, for that one blistering summer, the ground moisture was just right. Planting early allowed pollination before heat withered the tops, and the lack of rain spared the standing corn from floods. That winter my crib overflowed with corn, fat, healthy, 3 to a stalk ears filled with kernels from heel to tip, while my neighbor's fields yielded only brown, empty husks. Although plantings past may have fallen below the 50% expectation, and they probably will again in the future, I am still sustained by the crop that flourishes during the drought.
Thank you. The reason why I picked that particular piece is because that, to me, is like exactly 50%. 50% intentions, 50% something else. And I appreciated that particular piece. So this is how that particular session affected me. I don't want to force my view on anyone, but I do force myself to look more deeply, to analyze my intents towards others, myself, and the world. This changes how I react to people and situations. While assuming may be arrogant, it allows me the freedom to believe that something is true without proof. I.e., someone says something that is hurtful, I choose to believe that they said it to be helpful, believing in the ultimate good of their aim or purpose, and then I act accordingly. See how I worked several of the definitions in there? I did that on purpose.
You assumed that.
Yes, they did.
Yes, they did.
How the world impacts me. I don't believe that the world is out to get me. Believe it or not, I used to always be woe is me. Oh God, how could this happen to me? This is so terrible. Oh, I can't believe that the car got a flat. I can't believe that this happened, or that money got stolen, or whatever. The world's not out to get me. I thought it was incredible when we had the conversation about the book at the retreat, and we started talking about why not me. It came to the conclusion, one of the points that I'm going to flip past quickly is, good stuff happens to bad people, and bad stuff happens to good people. It just happens. You can't believe that the world is out to get you just because that happens. Or I can't, anyway. I don't believe that everybody is talking about me when I leave the room. I know, that sounds incredibly conceited. But the thing is, for me, I know that I don't display it a lot, but I used to be a very, very, very insecure person. And I was convinced, as much as people gave me hugs and told me how much they loved me when I was present, as soon as I left, they were saying everything that they hated about me. I believed that to the very core of my being, because I was so insecure, I couldn't help not believing that. And now, because I try to assume the best, I assume that people don't do that. If they do it, okay. But I'm not going to assume that automatically. I try to understand what the other person is saying before the response. A lot of times, this is called active listening, where you're having a conversation with somebody, and even as they're saying what they're saying, you're already preparing your response for it. That's not listening. Like, that's defeating the purpose of having a conversation. Why are you not just talking to a wall? I mean, think about it. Like, how many times do you have a conversation with someone where you really have a conversation with that person, where maybe even after each one of you speaks, you take 10 seconds and go, okay, I see the validity in what you're saying. And then have a useful conversation with them, especially when it comes to religion. Religion is one of those touchy things where as soon as somebody starts talking about their religion, it's real easy to put that shield up and go, okay, we can't have this conversation without arguing. I can talk to anybody about any religion and just say, it's awesome that that path works for you. It's not my path, but I think it's great that it's yours. I can do that. I could have a conversation with Kim Davis, and I wouldn't care. I'd just be like, if that's your religion, that's awesome for you. If that's what it takes to make you happy, go for it. What I said earlier, I understand that bad things happen to good people. I assume that. How I impact the world. I'm now much, much, much more careful in how I say things to people. And these were some of the things that we talked about in that particular session. Does this need to be said? If a teacher's teaching a class and they get a fact wrong, do you really need to correct them? Why are you correcting them? Is the even better question. Because what is your intent in that situation? Are you giving them information because you want them to be better next time they're teaching? Or are you doing it because you want to show them up? Which was very often my intent. Read the person. If I see that somebody's already having a bad day, why would I go to them with a litany of everything that's wrong with them? There were a lot of times when I would go up to somebody and be like, wow, that shirt looks really bad on you. And not even care that they were already having a crappy day, and I just made it worse. I think that's something that we need to think about when it comes to interacting with other people. Is this the best way to say it? Is there a way that you can say something to somebody and say it more usefully? Maybe that shirt's not the best for you. Maybe we could find you something that fits your body type a little better. You can find ways to say almost anything better. And then when it comes to it, ask for feedback. Did I say that in a way that was helpful to you? If I didn't, how could I have said it better? Julie and I have a very different language than most people I talk to. I would say things to her that I would never say to anybody else, but that's because that's our language. I wouldn't say those things that way to other people. What could I gain and what could I lose? If I say something to somebody and say it the wrong way and they don't know me, I could lose the potential of having any kind of relationship with them. So I try to be very careful in what I say. So I was reading through this book, Essential Spirituality, and there is something in the Buddhist belief that is called right speech. And I thought it was really kind of awesome. Right speech requires sensitivity to other people and to our own motives and emotions. Only then can we see what is true from our experience and likely to be helpful. We are never completely certain what will be most helpful, but the more sensitive we are in choosing our words, the better our chances of helping rather than harming. These are lessons that I learned. I didn't have this. When I didn't have a filter, I didn't care. I would just say it and then hope that, whatever. If it's not useful to you, okay. Julie can tell you this one. I was a anger ball. I would tell you, I was mad at you and I was going to tell you everything I had to say. Now, a lot of times when I'm angry, I say, can we talk about this later? Because so many things are said out of anger that cannot be taken back. And you can detrimentally hurt your relationship with somebody by saying something, especially if they're already in a bad place. You could say something the wrong way and devastate them. So if I'm angry, let's talk about it later. I personally try not to speak using sarcasm because it rarely helps me to offer best intent clearly. Most of the time when people use sarcasm, they use it as, at least for me, I used it as a defense mechanism. I wasn't comfortable with saying something to you, so I'd say it sarcastically and hope that you got that it wasn't supposed to be sarcastic. Yeah, that's not helpful. It's much more useful to find a way to actually reach somebody and be truthful with them. If all you do is communicate in sarcasm, it's really difficult to get close. I mean, that's just my lesson. I speak less. Honestly, if you'd known me 5 years ago, you'd have thought, oh my God, like this dude never, ever, ever shuts up. I would talk about anything, anywhere, never breaking. And I just got to the point where I learned, there's sometimes when silence improves the situation. I mean, let's just be real about it.
Silence is golden.
There's a reason for that. So I just had to learn, you know what? Sometimes I just didn't need to speak. These probably look familiar. These are the 7 principles. The inherent worth and dignity of each person and every living thing. When we were at the retreat, there was a couple of people that joked around about me brown-nosing. I don't brown-nose, but I'm not afraid to voice my support of anybody. I treat the janitor of a company exactly as I would treat the president of that company. When it comes to servers, when you're out at a restaurant, if you're fast fooding it doesn't matter who it is. If you don't want to be spoken to that way, you probably shouldn't speak that way. Because everybody deserves that worth, that dignity. And you can take it away from people. I can take it away from people. Justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. You can kind of see all the rest of them because the first one was the one that I really wanted to expound upon, but all of them are absolutely valid in the way that I can personally impact the world. An unspectacular life may be a garden rich in delight, in queer paths, perfumed herbs, and marble cloisters. I live a life of no major accomplishments, said the oldest man alive. High living is ephemeral, quick to change. The light soon dims atop tower peaks. I just thought that this was an awesome quote because it reminded me a lot of everything that I had read in my Christian days and my favorite book of the Bible, which is Ecclesiastes. And whether you're Christian, Buddhist, it doesn't matter. You can define God or not God however you choose. I think that there are some great things that can be gotten from the Bible, so every once in a while I remember one. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. I'm almost done. So what is my intent? Is my intent to have a long, lustrous resume? Or is it to leave a legacy behind me? You can guess which way I lean. Because Julie and I have talked about getting more glamorous jobs that would provide more money. But honestly, we would rather have a job that covers the bills, that doesn't demand as much time, that allows us to be around each other, that allows us to be happy. That's our choice. Dalai Lama. We are visitors on this planet. We are here for 90, 100 years at the very most. During that period, we must do something good, something useful with our lives. Try to be at peace with yourself, and help others share that peace. If you can contribute to others' happiness, you will find the true goal, the meaning of life. The more aware you are, the more aware of your intentions and your experiences you become, the more you will be able to connect the two, and the more you will be able to create the experiences of your life consciously. This is a development of mastery. It is the creation of authentic power. I love this one. Good intentions often get muddled with very complex execution. The last time the government tried to make taxes easier, it created the 1040 EZ form with a 52-page help booklet.
That is easier. Much longer than allowed.
So here's just a kind of, I had to throw one pop culture reference in there, and I decided to go with Snape. If you decide, did you decide at the very beginning of the books that he was good or that he was evil? And then even as you read through the 7 books or saw the 7 movies, when you came to the very end, did you decide that he was good or that he was evil? And it can kind of tell you, like where you are as far as if you're cynical or not. And this is all the various resources that I used for anybody who wants to look up anything that I've said. So, yeah, I went over. I'm sorry. I'll do better next time, I promise. Thank you, guys.